Luther Müller was a young man from Germany. He was 19 years old and was about to be recruited in World War II. He didn't want to fight for World War II. Instead, he was an anti-war activist and joined an anti-war group to try to end the war. Luther was on his way to the anti-war group. This anti-war group was led by a man named Will. Will first assigned him to steal the coat of a general. This wasn't just no ordinary coat. This coat would have been used as a disguise for the rest of his tasks. When Luther arrived to the base, he first thought maybe he was just going to shoot him, but that was a bad idea because it would make too much noise. So instead, Luther snuck up on the general and strangled him to death. When Luther left the base, he wore the coat to avoid suspicions. This was used as a disguise for the rest of his tasks. This was the end of the first task. After Luther's first task, he was assigned another task. His task was to take out a group of security guards. The only problem was that they had radios, and if there was any suspicion of an intruder, they would be able to send a signal, and more security guards would come. So Luther invited his friend Adrian, who helps him for a few of his tasks. Adrian's job was to turn off all the lights, so the security guards will be confused for a little bit. When he turned off all the lights, Luther threw a grenade into a group of security guards and concussed them for a little bit. While they were concussed, Adrian went around and stole all of the radios. Luther then killed the rest of the security guards without any more guards coming. He also took a very valuable item that the guards had. They had stun guns, which were very clever because he could take someone down without killing them, which would be used for future tasks. This is the end of the second task. Luther was assigned his third task, but the only problem was Luther found this task to be very personal. In fact, the general that he was supposed to humiliate was actually a relative of his. So he had to choose either not complete the task for the sake of his relative, or complete the task to help end the war. He decided to complete the task. This job entailed him going to the restaurant, and when the general went to the bathroom, he would take the pants off the general and leaving him there. This would humiliate him in front of all of his family and friends. Luther completed the third task. For the next assignment, Will assigned him to go to the beach where supposedly the German scientist with all the answers was going to be. Luther's task was to capture the scientist and bring him back to the base in one piece. The group needed his intelligence to find out what the German army was up to. When Luther came upon the German scientist tried to flee and ran towards his boat. When the German scientist was in the water, Luther had a special tool to help capture the scientist without killing him. This tool was a stun gun that he got from the guards originally. What he did was he got the stun gun and threw it in the area of the German scientist. He left it on full blast and threw it towards him. This shocked the German scientist and put him into shock for a little bit. Luther was able to capture him, put him in his car, and bring him back to the base. The scientist was used to disarm all the bombs and allow the Germans to lose that war. The German scientist's knowledge was able to destroy the bomb while it was at the base, destroying part of the Germans' base, which increased the chances of Germany losing. At this time, the war was starting to die down, and Luther and Will started to become really close friends. Luther would do anything for Will if he needed it. In fact, for his next task, Will assigned him to do some dirty work for his business. Will owned BMW and needed a good salesman to bring the sales up, so Luther agreed to help him out. Will needed him to sell all of his cars so the BMW stock market would go up, and Will would be a wealthy man. Luther completed the task, and that was the end of the task. At this time, the fact that Will ran an anti-war group, the information was starting to leak. This was causing bad publicity for BMW. Every single day there was paparazzi spying on him, trying to get information from him, and Will was starting to get very annoyed. He needed someone to get rid of all the paparazzi and find a way for them not to ever come back. Will asked Luther if he can help him out. Luther ended up with a great idea. His plan was to get a gas bomb and making all of the paparazzi run away. This gas had a chemical that made loud noises go in their head. So, if they were affected by the bomb, they would have to run away and never come back. For the most part, this idea worked, but the only problem was the people who had no side effect to the gas were still staying. So Luther took out his pistol and started shooting at them and trying to make them run away. Many were killed and many fled. That was the end of the task. After that last task was completed, Will still had some more favors to ask Luther. Will asked him if he was a good cook. Luther said that he picks up well, and he believes that he'll be able to make a fine meal. The reason that Will asked Luther for this favor is because Will's parents gave Will money to go to culinary school. Meanwhile, Will never used the money, but used the money to start up his BMW business. Will had no idea how to cook, so he had Luther cook it for him. Luther agreed, and the dinner came to success. His parents had no suspicion and loved the food. That was the end of that task. As a reward for Luther and Adrian for their brave fighting skills, he sent them on to go to a special club. The special club was one of the coolest clubs around, and only really rich people get to go in. Also, at this party, there would be a showing of this really cool weapon, which was very powerful. The only problem was, this ended up being a trap. Everybody that was at that club was at danger. All of a sudden, robots came out of nowhere and started attacking all the people. Luther and Adrian tried to run away, but Adrian was caught and killed by robots. Luther tried to flee, but he needed to get rid of the evil monsters who tried to take away Adrian's life. He went back and killed all the robots. His task was completed. After the robot incident, Luther was assigned another task. His task was to steal the crown from a beauty pageant queen. This crown was worth a lot of money, and Will really wanted to get it. When Luther first got there, he talked to all the contestants and got really friendly with them. To distract them, he put up a sign right in front of a closet saying, "Free fat-free smoothies." All of the contestants were distracted and went into that closet. Luther then trapped them in that closet. After all the contestants were trapped, Luther went to the beauty pageant queen, stole her crown, and fled. He was faster than her and was able to get away. That was the end of that task. When Luther arrived back to the base, he noticed that Will seemed very panicky. Will just found out that Cadillac is coming out with new technology in his cars, and his company doesn't have that technology yet. Will didn't want to fall behind technology, so he sent Will to America to get a line of Cadillac cars and bring them back to Germany. The only trouble he had was trying to get 13 cars onto a plane with Border Patrol. He ended up getting by Border Patrol and successfully brought the cars back to Luther. When Luther got back to Germany, Will just sent him back to America. He wanted him to steal 2 blocks of gold from America. On his way back to America, he noticed an American man being beat up by a few German soldiers. Luther went over to him to try to help him out. In a reward, the man gave Luther anything of his wish. Luther asked for the blocks of gold. When they both arrived back to America, he went to the White House and got 2 blocks of gold and gave it to him. Luther successfully retrieved the gold back to Germany and completed his task. While Luther was still in America, Will contacted him to see if he can steal a line from the Big Apple Circus in New York. Luther agreed, but it was going to be a hard task. He had some trouble on his way. He had to deal with New York gangs and many other scary things. He eventually got past them and came upon the lion. The lion jumped at him and nearly scratched him. Luther didn't let that stop him, and he eventually got a rope and tied it around the lion's neck. He let him out the door and onto a boat back to Germany. Luther completed his last task. Luther became the most hated man in Germany because he went against the German army. To avoid conflict, Luther moved back to America. He became a hero and a very successful businessman. He invented the Mueller Greek yogurt company and served America very delicious yogurt.